What's happening, good people? Welcome to Leadership in Real Life, where we talk about what leadership actually looks like in real time. I'm H-Monét, leadership coach and former school principal, helping leaders balance people, performance, and priorities without burning out. Let's get into it. Today's episode is for every leader who's already thinking about what's next. The next quarter, the next school year, the next initiative, the next goal, the next season. And leadership requires you to be 2 to 3 steps ahead of everyone. However, leaders mentally live in the future and never properly close out the present. And that leads me to today's topic, the biggest mistake leaders make at the end of a season. And no, it's not poor planning. It's not lack of preparation. It's not setting goals that are too ambitious. The biggest mistake leaders make at the end of a season is this. They never stop long enough to learn from that season. I want you to sit with that for a minute. Most leaders are so focused on what's next that they never stop to learn from what just happened. They don't intentionally process a season. So they end up unintentionally repeating the same mistakes, the same challenges, the same frustrations, the same team dynamics that they don't like. So then what happens? They stress themselves out, wondering, why does it feel like I'm solving the same problems every single year? And that's driving them crazy because somewhere along the way, they moved on before they learned the lesson. So bear with me. I want to talk about it. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to give you a simple framework that will help you close your seasons intentionally so you can step into the next one with clarity instead of that carryover that we hate. Strong leaders do this. They don't just finish the seasons, they close them. And I want to help you close your season properly, especially because it's the summertime. Things are slow. We're ending the budget year, getting ready to start a new one in July, ramping up for what quarter 4 of 2026 is going to be. And think about it. We're already thinking about the end of the year. What have you learned so far in 2026? How can we make the second half of 2026 even stronger than the first half? Let's talk about it. Now, if you've been in leadership for any amount of time, you've probably experienced this. The season ends and immediately your brain shifts into planning, preparing, problem solving, and organizing what's next. And especially if you're a high capacity leader, you finish one thing and you immediately start asking yourself, what's next? What's the next priority? What's the next challenge that I'm going to have to work through? What's my next goal? And while that sounds productive, it can actually be one of the most dangerous habits in leadership because leaders often move straight into planning without pausing to reflect. They never stop to evaluate what worked, what didn't, what grew, what challenged us, what did we learn, what needs to stay, what needs to go. And because these questions never get answered, your growth of you and your team gets left behind. So then why do leaders skip reflection? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Some of it is because things are just moving too fast. We're exhausted. We're just trying to survive long enough to get to the finish line. And leaders that are more achievement oriented, they've been rewarded so long for doing, producing, and moving quickly that they learn to live in that urgency. And slowing down to them actually feels like they're falling behind. And so some leaders don't want to sit with that. And they want to sit with any disappointment that could come about because of that reflection. Because that reflection is going to cause you to acknowledge maybe a missed opportunity, maybe a missed leadership mistake, an unmet goal, or maybe a difficult truth that they're avoiding. And in balanced leadership, we learn that reflection is key. It has to happen because leadership growth doesn't happen just through the experience alone. It also happens through the examined experience. And that's a big difference. Just getting through it doesn't mean you're automatically going to grow. You have to stop, reflect, and analyze what went well and what didn't so you don't waste time repeating mistakes that you've already made. We don't have time for that. Now, let me give you a real leadership example. Imagine you are a school principal. You just finished the school year. It's maybe the week after the last day of school. And automatically your mind starts going, thinking about staff changes, your summer hiring that you still have left to do. Maybe you got to finalize that master schedule, finalize the professional development strategy, think through any new initiatives, and maybe finalize your goals for next year. And these are all important things. But what never happens is that reflection of the year that you just lived through. Not evaluating the leadership decisions that worked well, which systems improved your outcomes, what positive culture shifts occurred, who grew significantly, what mistakes that happened that should never be repeated. What lessons did this year teach us? And because that reflection doesn't happen, oftentimes many of those same challenges reappear the following year. And sometimes they creep up on us. And because although the leader is capable and your team is committed, the school never extracted the learning from the experience. And that's a challenge that so many leaders face. Educational leaders or non-educational leaders. You're carrying unresolved frustrations, unfinished conversations, unmet expectations, unprocessed lessons from one season into the next. And then you wonder why the same issues keep showing up. And so what isn't reflected on often gets repeated. Sit with that. What isn't reflected on often get repeated. And so effective leaders don't just celebrate the end of a season, they study what happened in that season. What does it mean to study the season that you just closed? Let's talk about that. So let me give you a framework you can use immediately. I call it my reset framework, and it's designed to help leaders intentionally close a season before stepping into the next one. First is R, recognize the wins. What worked well? What are you proud of? What progress was made? Because leaders often move past the victories too quickly to settle on thinking through the issues, but we got to take time to celebrate them. E, evaluate the challenges. What didn't work? What obstacles consistently showed up in your experience? Where were the pressure points? S, study the lessons. What did this season teach you about leadership, about your team, about yourself? And this might be the most important question in the entire framework. So sit with this one for a minute. E, express appreciation. Who contributed to the success of this past season? Who needs to hear a thank you? And it's really imperative that leaders do that because you can't just recognize the results. You need to recognize the people behind the results. And finally, T, transfer the learning. What must come with you into the next season? And as equally important is, what cannot come with you into the next season? Because not everything deserves a seat in your next chapter. Some of your leadership habits need to stay in the past, along with those frustrations and some of those negative stories that you tell yourself. Some lessons do need to move forward, and being able to think through the difference, that's a very important part of leadership as you prepare to go into another season. So here's what I want you to do this week. I want you to conduct a season-end leadership reflection. It's a couple questions I want you to ask yourself. Number 1, what am I proud of? Number 2, what challenged me? Number 3, what lessons do I need to carry forward into the next season? 4, what do I need to release? 5, who do I need to thank? And what cannot come with me into the next season? Spend some real time answering those questions. You might want to journal them, discuss them with your team. Maybe if you're having some type of summer leadership retreat, discuss them then. Bring them into your planning process, because leaders who fail to reflect repeat the same cycles. They must reflect in order to accelerate your growth. That's what effective leadership does. And I want you to really understand, this is your key takeaway from today's session. I want you to know that the success of your next season is determined by how you intentionally close the one that you're in. So don't rush past this reflection. I want you to learn from it. And if today's conversation resonated with you in any way, here's what I want you to do. DM me Reset to receive the Balanced Leadership End of Season Reset Guide. Also, make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube page, y'all. Come on. I don't want you to miss any of these leadership and real life moments. They're quick, they're straight to the point, but they always include effective tips that you can implement pretty immediately. And then I want you to visit my website to learn how I support leadership teams through strategic planning, leadership retreat, reflection sessions, and leadership development experiences. And if you know another leader who is already focused on next season, send them this episode. It could probably help them. Leadership growth always happens when we stop long enough to learn. Hold on to that. And remember, lead with heart, lead with strategy, and let's build a leadership that actually lasts. I'll see you in the next Leadership in Real Life moment. Peace.